Israel. Israel has been in a continued downward trend toward its own destruction. And I know it's been a few weeks because of weather and other things, but you might remember if we kind of go back, we're looking at the left side of the chart here. The house of Jehu has been ruling in the north, and Jeroboam, he's highlighted on the left side here, Jeroboam II, he's ruled for 41 years, but it was an evil rule. It wasn't a good, imagine, we haven't had the best 4 years. I'm trying to be nice. I'm trying to be nice when I say this, but I can remember about kindergarten. I think I can remember about kindergarten. Anybody remember much earlier than kindergarten? I mean, I can't remember a lot of things, but I remember things that happened in kindergarten. Maybe I could look at some pictures from when I was like 4 or something and be like, I kind of remember that, but I'm not sure if I remember because I see it in the picture or because I actually remember it. But I kind of remember some stuff in kindergarten a little bit. I kind of remember times and presidencies and stuff like that and elections. And man, these 4 were, they were pretty rough. They were pretty rough. It was probably the worst 4 years of the White House in my entire life. I honestly can't think of anything remotely close. I don't know. Sandy, you?
That's true. I agree with you.
It was probably one of the worst presidencies. Who was worse? Carter? I wasn't, it was before I was alive, technically, for Carter's reign. For his presidency. But this is bad. Could it really be worse? We didn't know what was going on. Nobody knew what was going on. Nobody believes that the president was actually the president. Even non-conspiracy, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but do we really think this guy was running the country? It's hard to think. It was rough. Imagine 41 years. 4 years, four rough years. It felt like a long time. Imagine 41 years of an evil ruler and the types of things that can happen in 41 years of evil rule. And it's been a lot longer than 40 years because it wasn't just Jeroboam. It was his father and his father and his father, and really going all the way back to the time of Jeroboam. So, we're talking 930 to 750. That's like it's like 180 years of basically evil rulers. That makes 4 years seem like nothing. So things aren't really good in Israel, but they're not. They're better in Judah in the south. That's the right side of the chart here, but not a ton better because as we saw last time we were together, Azariah, listen, Judah has seen some political turmoil. 4 consecutive rulers were killed in some way or another. And then the next one, Azariah, got so proud that he entered into the temple to burn incense, and he was stricken with leprosy. And that's why we call him the leper king. So, yeah, things are better in Judah, but not a million times better. And now we're in the year 753. So you'll see on the left side, Jeroboam II reigns from 793 to 753. We're in the year 753, and Israel in the north has been expanding its territory. But there's an enemy in the north. Now, I thought maybe this would be helpful. We know this map. We've seen this map. We've been in this map quite a bit. And I changed colors today just to help you see some stuff later on. But this is Israel in the north, and we could get technical, and that kind of looks like a puzzle piece. Almost reminds me of Texas. Anyway, so that would be Israel, and this would be Syria or Aram, and Judah would be down here, and way up in the north up here is Assyria, not to be confused with Syria. All right, so Assyria, not to be confused with Syria. And if we were to look at a map of the Assyrian Empire, this would basically be where Israel is, something like that. I know that's not really that good. And Syria would be up in here. And as we zoom out, you have this monstrous, remember we talked about a cat and mouse. We talked about a game of cat and I didn't make that up. I think it was Dr. McLean who used the term, or maybe it was, see, I'm losing my mind. No, it wasn't Dr. McLean. It was another, I'm losing his name for some reason. He retired like in my early days. But he talked about a game of cat and mouse. It's going to drive me nuts, his name, until as soon as the sermon's over, I'm like, oh, I remember his name. Talked about Israel being a tiny little mouse in a cage of big cats. And Assyria, basically at this time, is something like that. And Syria is like here, and Israel is like there. So you're dealing with, you're a little mouse surrounded by big cats. But that big cat in the north, Assyria is really, it's a sleeping giant right now, and it's waiting to wake up. And in about 30 years, they're going to come down through, actually even less than that, in 20 years, they're going to come down through the land. They're going to take the land of Syria, and in about 30 years, they're going to take the land of Israel on top of it, and you'll see even a little bit more than that. So they'll actually take all this. Actually, in 30 years, all this is going to belong to Assyria. Maybe actually this too is going to belong to Assyria. So, these guys, they're a sleeping giant up there, and they're gearing up for coming in and invading the land of Syria and also invading, actually they'll come this direction, we'll see in a little bit later, they'll come down through here and into the coastlands and back up. They're going to invade Israel. That's kind of what's on the precipice of happening here. In today's passage, what we're going to see is, and I'll do the best I can to draw. I'm terrible at drawing. It's supposed to be a downward spiral. Man, that looks really bad. What would a spiral, I don't know, something like that. It's like the downward spiral of the nation of Israel, to the point where they continue to spiral and spiral and spiral until they lead to their own destruction. We don't quite get to that destruction here yet, but it's coming. The exile of its people is coming. And we start with Zechariah in Israel in the north. And Zechariah rules in 753 for a mere 6 months, and that ends the dynasty of Jehu. Remember, Jehu would have 4, right? He would have 4 sons to sit on the throne. He ends the dynasty of Jehu. Check this out. In the 38th year of Azariah, now you remember Azariah over on the right side, right? We're starting at 792, so we're counting basically 38 years from 792. In the 38th year of Azariah, king of Judah, Zechariah, the son of Jeroboam II, became king over Israel and Samaria for 6 months. Now, his rule is one of the shortest in Israel's history. It's definitely not the shortest, but it's one of the shortest, like the third shortest, I think, of all the kings. But just like all the kings in Israel in the north, his rule was evil. His reign is evil. He did evil in the sight of the Lord as his fathers had done. He did not depart from the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, which he made Israel sin. So he continues the cult that Jeroboam had set up, the first Jeroboam, the first king of the north, and he worships at the idolatrous sites. These 2 idolatrous sites, where are they? I'll give you one. Is Bethel in the north or the south? South, good. That was a 50-50, right? Was that a guess? That's okay. And Dan, north or south? There's only one left. There's only one left. If you get it wrong, well. So these two idolatrous worship sites, they continue to worship here. And then after only 6 months, Zechariah is assassinated. Then Shallum, the son of Jabesh, conspired against him and struck him before the people and killed him and reigned in his place. And God said that this would happen. He said that he would rise up against the house of Jeroboam, and that's exactly what would happen. And so Zechariah's reign is over, and this ends the dynasty of Jehu. Now the rest of the acts of Zechariah, behold, they are written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel. This is the word of the Lord, which he spoke to Jehu, saying, your sons to the fourth generation shall sit on the throne of Israel. And so it was. So you might remember Jehu had wiped out the Baal cult, and God promised that 4 of his sons would rule. If we look at our timeline, we have Jehu, we have Jehoahaz is the first, Jehoash, Jeroboam the second, Zechariah. That's it. Jehu's dynasty is over. And by the way, maybe for the kids or for the young people, do you know what we mean when we say dynasty? Someone's dynasty, Jehu's dynasty. Do we know what that means? Do you have any idea what that means? I like the teenagers. What is a dynasty? I see a smile back there. Does that mean you know it or you don't know it? It's a what? Yeah, it's like rulers from within your family. So the Billy Graham dynasty in his church, right? He's kind of like the guy, and then his son's kind of like the guy, and that type of a thing. And then, eventually, it's not quite the same because we're dealing with the dynasty of kings, right? So this guy's son ruled, and that guy's son ruled, and that guy's son ruled. But now, the family of Jehu ceases to rule. The dynasty of Jehu ends. That's kind of what happens here. And God fulfills his promise that 4 sons would rule, and this is the 4th one, and that promise has been fulfilled, and now he ends up dead because Shallum murders Zechariah and takes his place. And that's the next king here. And you see he rules in 752. His rule is even shorter than the 6-month rule of Zechariah. Check this out. In verse 13, Shallum, son of Jabesh, so he is not of the sons of Jehu. This is of a different dynasty. Well, will it be a dynasty? Because a dynasty would imply there's more than one, right? So the Davidic dynasty, all of the family of David rules. So these dynasties don't often last into dynasties. They don't often. It's like if a team wins the Super Bowl. If you win one Super Bowl, it's not a dynasty. If you win a couple, they start calling. Has there really been a dynasty? I don't know. I guess the most it's been 2. The most has been 2 at a time that I know. But in baseball, the Yankees won like 7 years in a row or something like that in like 1948 to like 1953 or some 1946. I don't know what it was. It was a lot of years in a row. That would have been considered a dynasty because they continue to win over and over. Well, will there be successive kings here? Will there be same kings from the family? Shallum, son of Jabesh, became king in the 39th year of Uzziah. Who is Uzziah? What's his other name? What's that? Really close. Azariah. So Azariah is, he's named Azariah in 2 Kings. He's named Uzziah most of the time in Chronicles. So Shallum, son of Jabesh, became king in the 39th year of Azariah, king of Judah. And he reigned 1 month. He was the king for 1 month. 30 days, or somewhere thereabouts, depending on if it's a lunar month, it might be 1 month, a lunar month. What's that? What's a lunar month? 28 days? 28 days most of the time a lot of times when we see months spoken about in the Old Testament, it's a lunar month. Let's call it 28 to 30 days, somewhere in there, a month. It doesn't necessarily mean it's exact, but he ruled for a month. And you have another murderer, because Shallum is a murderer, because he killed his master. He killed Zechariah. you have another murderer ruling over Israel, and there's complete turmoil. The last guy rules for 6 months. This guy rules for 1 month. It's a mess. It's a mess. And at this point in time, there's turmoil going on in Judah as well, because he's ruling in 752. That's during the reign of Azariah. And in about 2 years, if you look at the right side of the map, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down to Azariah, you'll see that his son Jotham begins ruling in 750. You see that? See if I get this right. 750. What happens in 750? Does anyone remember what happens to Azariah that stops him from continuing to rule by himself? Talked about this last time we met. Yeah, I already gave you the answer, right? Sometimes I ask questions I already gave you the answer to earlier in the night, and I want to make sure you're paying attention. Yeah, he entered into the temple to try to burn incense. He got leprosy. So there's stuff going on over there in Judah. There's stuff going on here. 6-month rule. 6 months. 1 month rule. These aren't good. You know, there's a guy that ruled for a week, you know, at one point. So these are not good. All right, erase all, and that should do it. You know, I just want to do it this way because I know how to do it that way. So in about 2 years, things are going to be messy over there in the south. But Shallum's rule is the second shortest. Only this guy. Now, this name may not stand out, but as an ancient swear word, you know, like a mudslinging word, you may know it. This king ruled for only 1 week. Do you have it? You have it? Zimri. You want to finish this? You want to finish the dirty Zimri? You Zimri. Keep going. Who said that? Who said murder? Oh, that was you. You Zimri, murderer of your master. Who said that? Does anyone remember who said? It was Jezebel. As she painted her face and was attacked, she by Jehu. She said, "You Zimri, do you come in peace, you Zimri, murderer of your master?" Well, Zimri ruled for a week. That's been a little while since we've looked at him. So impressive that you got Zimri. Even more impressive if you get the second part. The dirty name, Zimri, murderer of your master. Shallum is also a murderer of his master, and he reigns for 1 month. In fact, his reign is so short that 2 Kings doesn't say anything about him, except that he himself was also murdered. Look at verses 14 and 15. Then Menahem, son of Gadai, went up from Tirzah and came to Samaria, that's the capital city, and struck Shallum, son of Jabesh, in Samaria, and killed him, and became king in his place. Now the rest of the acts of Shallum and his conspiracy which he made, the coup. By the way, have you guys seen the ridiculous garbage that the news is saying that that this was a coup, that Trump's win is a coup, and that the people, he's letting out all the people that tried to participate in the previous coup 4 years ago. I mean, it's just so wild how crazy. These people are completely insane. It should be illegal, like the lies. It really should be illegal, but we have freedom of speech even if it's lies, I guess. So I guess they have the freedom to lie. I wish they would get sued. They have gotten sued multiple times for slanderous lies, and they've had to pony up some money for their lies. I wish they'd have to pony up more. But there's no coup going on. The people spoke. The people were sick of the garbage that was going on. But this here is a coup. The rest of the acts of Shallum and his conspiracy which he made, because he murdered his master, behold, they are written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel. There's nothing to say about this king. It doesn't say he's evil, although that's implied. It's implied. He murdered his master and took his place. That's not a good dude. It's not like, oh yeah, this was the guy you want. This is the guy who's going to lead Israel back to the Lord, the guy who murdered the guy before him and took his place. good dude. No, but in the end, he gets killed. And it's like what goes around comes around. These guys keep killing people and taking their place, and then they get killed and their place gets taken. I remember when I was a teenage boy. And, as a teenage boy, I wasn't a Christian guy, and I had different girlfriends. And I remember one time I chased after this girl, and she dumped her boyfriend for me. And I was telling my sister, telling my sister, hey, she was like, didn't she have a boyfriend like last week? And I was like, yeah, but she dumped him for me, so I'm good. We're good to go. And she's like, well, wait a minute now. If she dumped him for you, don't you think she would dump you for someone else? And she did. It's exactly what she did. I was probably like in 8th grade or something. It's exactly, it's like what goes around comes around, So I was the guy that took the other guy's place, and then someone else took my place. I don't even remember who it was, to be honest with you. It was nothing. It was a big nothing burger in my life. But, it's the same general idea. These guys are killing someone, taking their place, and then the same thing is happening to them. All right, they're getting killed. And Menahem rules for, we'll see here, Menahem rules for 10 years. Notice how he starts his rule in verse 16. Now we're going to kind of move through these pretty quickly. Then Menahem struck Tiphsah and all who were in it and its borders from Tirzah, because they did not open to him. Therefore he struck it and ripped all its women who were with child, ripped them open. So, this is a guy who goes way up north by the Euphrates River because he's an expansionist. He's trying to expand his territory. And he's trying to really keep and reestablish the boundaries that were the northern boundaries under Solomon. And this town of Tiphsah is over 250 miles northeast of the city of Dan, which is often known as the northernmost city in Israel. So it's up there. Well, he takes the city, he brutally murders, he rips open the pregnant women, he brutally murders the citizens. And today, this guy would be considered a murderous tyrant and a war criminal. By the way, they called there's like the council in Warsaw or whatever. They're calling Netanyahu a war criminal. They've called for his arrest as a war criminal or something like that. It's wild. It's completely wild. The world is insane right now. But this type of thing that we're reading about here is far too common in the ancient Near East. This guy Menahem is an evil, murderous king of Israel. Notice the beginning and length of his reign in verse 17. So we're just kind of flying through a couple of kings. You could, if you, like I said, you don't, in the past, you don't have to take the notes on the names of these kings. I have a whole chart I could give you that can kind of help you. Just email me on that, and I'll send the chart over. In the 39th year of Azariah, king of Judah, Menahem, son of Gadai, became king over Israel and reigned 10 years in Samaria. So this is also the year 752. We're still at 752 here. And so in the last 7 months, there have been 3 rulers, because Zechariah rules for 6 months, Shallum rules for 1 month, and Menahem now takes over. So that's like 7 months. You've had 3 different kings. That's turmoil. And you think, well, things are getting a little bit better because he rules for 10 years. But I just have you press pause on that idea for a second. Menahem's reign, like all the kings of Israel, was evil. Verse 18, he did evil in the sight of the Lord. He did not depart all his days from the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, which he made Israel sin. He worships in the Jeroboam cult and all that stuff. And that brings trouble. Pul, king of Assyria. This guy Pul shows up in other places. His name's also known as, you might have heard the name Tiglath-Pileser. Pul, king of Assyria. Remember we talked about the big cat up there? That big, huge cat. And we have these tiny little mice. We have Tom was the cat, and Jerry's the little mouse. Except in Tom and Jerry, the mouse. Do we really think the mouse is going to win? I mean, come on. That mouse would have gotten eaten alive. That cat would have drugged that mouse in from outside and ripped it apart, and it would have had to. Jerry wouldn't have had a chance. But it's a cartoon. My favorite in the cartoons is the Roadrunner. Remember the Roadrunner? Who was the guy that chased the Roadrunner? Wile E. Coyote. I love the one scene when they're on the big old like bridge, and Wile E. Coyote cuts a circle around the Roadrunner, and then the whole bridge falls, but the circle stays there. It's like these are fantastic cartoons. But in reality, who remembers that cartoon? I mean, we grew up on that. That's the stuff that kids should be. If you want to watch mindless garbage, watch old Looney Tunes. They were the best. But anyway, because you sit there and you're just like, oh, he's going to finally get the road one. Who rooted for Wile E. Coyote? Kind of wanted him to catch him, right? Who wanted him to catch the coyote? I kind of wanted him to catch him. He never caught him. I mean, I think one time he did catch him, but I don't remember what happened. I don't remember. But anyway, this is the big cat, and Israel is the little mouse. Pul, king of Assyria, the big cat, came against the land, and Menahem gave Pul, the king of Israel, gave the king of Assyria 1,000 talents of silver so that his hand might be with him to strengthen the kingdom under his rule. Then Menahem exacted the money from Israel, even from all the mighty men of wealth, from each man 50 shekels of silver to pay the king of Assyria. So the king of Assyria returned and did not remain there in the land. So what happens is this King Pul in Assyria, he takes over around 745. So if we're in the year 752, sometime during Menahem's reign, this guy kind of comes down through, and he's an imperialist. That is, he wants to expand. And he quickly takes over Babylon, and he starts taking the land of Syria, and every land that he conquers strengthens. He'd basically conquer the land, and the king would have to submit to this king, and he would make them pay tribute money. It's like a tax. He'd make them pay money. You pay the money, you get to stay here. Maybe you continue to rule as kind of like it's called a vassal king. A vassal king is a servant king. So he's the king, but he answers to a bigger king. So right now, Menahem is something like a vassal king. He is they technically have their freedom as long as they show him the money, right? As long as they give Pul the money. You give the money, and you're okay. So that's kind of what's going on here. Well, Pul turns his eyes towards Israel, and it was judgment from God. Check this out. This is important because now a major player later on is entering the scene. But they acted treacherously. Israel acted treacherously against the God. This is over in 1 Chronicles 5. Israel acted treacherously against the God of their fathers and played the harlot after the gods of the peoples of the land. They worshipped false gods whom God had destroyed, the people whom God had destroyed before them. So the God of Israel stirred up the spirit of Pul, Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, even the spirit of Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, and he carried them away into exile, namely the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, and brought them to Helah, Habor, Harod, and to the river of Gozan to this day. Anyone know where these guys lived? The Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh? Half of Manasseh. Anyone know where these guys lived? Anyone remember? Give some other people a chance here first. Anyone remember where these guys lived? Go ahead, Joe.
East of the Jordan River.
They lived over here in like the land of Gilead. So what happens is the king of Assyria comes in here and he attacks and he takes all this part of Israel out. He takes them out. Takes them out of the land, and that's just a sign of things that are coming. That's a sign of things that are coming. Menahem, the king of Israel, pays a large sum of money, and he basically makes the richer people in Israel kind of pay the bill. He's paying off the king of Assyria. Assyria is happy with that for now, but soon enough it won't be enough. And his reign comes to an end. Now the rest of the acts of Menahem and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel? And Menahem slept with his fathers, and Pekahiah his son became king in his place. And so what happens now, as we move on to another king, after Menahem's 10-year rule, we have another king, Pekahiah, who rules for 2 years. Check this out. In the 50th year, it's just like boom, 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 boom. We're not spending time in these kings. We're just this king, then this king, then this king, then this king. We're flying through the end of this to see where Israel's going. It is a continual downward trend of the nation of Israel, leading to its destruction. In the 50th year, we're still in the reign of Azariah. All these kings are ruling during the reign of Azariah. In the 50th year, and how long did he rule? Azariah? Oh, I got it up here. 52. So now, if it's 52 years, what year is it? If we're in the 50th year of 52 years, and Azariah's 52nd year is 740, we're at 742. That's how we're kind of figuring some of these things out. So Pekahiah rules from 742 to 740. In the 50th year of Azariah, king of Judah, Pekahiah, son of Menahem, became king over Israel and Samaria and reigned 2 years. So, what we have here is somebody's son actually makes it. Somebody actually, look here, he slept with his fathers. He got to die without being brutally murdered. We actually have a mini little dynasty going on here for the first time in some time in Israel. Will things turn around? I don't know, but it's around the year 742, and Assyria is becoming increasingly more interested in Israel's land, and it's moving further and further down the Fertile Crescent, and trouble is looming near. But Pekahiah, is he going to be any different? Is he going to be a good king? Is he going to change the downward spiral of the nation of Israel? What do you think? No, because the title wouldn't be the downward spiral of the nation of Israel if this guy reversed it. No, he continues it. He did evil in the sight of the Lord. He did not depart from the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, which he made Israel sin. So he follows after the same sins that all these kings have followed after for almost 200 years. He continues to worship at these idolatrous sites in Dan and Bethel. And then he, like many Israelite kings before him, who says he dies and his son takes over? Anyone? So the two options are he gets murdered or he dies naturally. Who dies naturally? Nobody who gets murdered. Did you read it? Did you see it already? You saw it. Some of you saw it. All right. Then Pekah, son of Remaliah. That name should sound familiar to you if you've read Isaiah 7, there's a conspiracy between Pekah, son of Remaliah, and the king of Syria at that time. But anyway, then Pekah, son of Remaliah, his officer, conspired against him and struck him in Samaria in the castle of the king's house with Argob and Arias, which some people think are the king's sons. And with him were 50 men of the Gileadites, and he killed him and became king in his place. So there's another military coup. He murders Pekahiah, and he takes his place. And now we're around the year 740. Now, the interest, which by the way, we see the same power hunger, we see the same murdering, all this stuff. Let me just press pause on this 740 business for a second. And I want to read, now the rest of the acts of Pekahiah and all that he did, behold, they are written in the books of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel. And Pekah, the son of Remaliah, takes over, and he rules for 20 years. Check this out. In the 52nd year, the final year of Azariah. Azariah's final year is what? On the right? 740. 740. Now look at the left. Do we see 740 in there anywhere? We don't. So there's something going on in this chart here that we got to talk about. Something going on in this chart that we have to figure out. Because the Bible says that he takes over in the final year of Azariah's reign in 740. Okay, well, we're not seeing that on our chart. In the 52nd year of Azariah, king of Judah, Pekah, son of Remaliah, became king over Israel and Samaria, and he reigned 20 years. So, this is a problem that people are trying to figure out when they come to the timeline. The problem is with the timeline, not the Bible. We're trying to figure out why our timeline is different, because we know that Hoshea rules for 10 years. So if we know that Pekah rules for 20, then he rules from 752 to 732. How do I solve that? How do I solve the fact that he rules for 20 years when during the first 12 years of his rule, we have two other kings ruling? Again, this is not a Bible problem. This is a timeline problem for us. We're trying to figure out the timeline. And although we don't necessarily have a perfect answer, we know he was previously a military officer. We don't have a perfect answer. The best answer that I found, and the one that I lean towards, is that we have a rival throne. That we have something similar to either a rival throne or kind of like a more private throne. He saw himself as ruling. Maybe he's over in the Transjordan. People are talking about maybe how he might have ruled in the Transjordan for a time. There's something like that would have happened where you have a rival throne, and he might have laid claim to a throne. There might have been confusion about which of the two kings was recognized as the rightful king. There might have been some annexation of his kingdom where he becomes a military commander under Pekahiah until he kills him and takes his place. So we just don't know the entirety of it. And we're really not going to find that out. But again, understand, this is a timeline problem. It's not a Bible problem. If you were asking me what's going on here, my best resolution to it is that Pekah has a rival throne in the Transjordan area for about 12 years. That's something like that. He had previously been a military commander. He had a rival throne. And in 740, he consolidates the whole kingdom. That's kind of what I have. So, again, we don't know this for sure. What we do know is that Pekah, the son of Remaliah, that he's in the Bible. He's in Isaiah 7, which I talked about, and he joins in league with Rezin, king of Syria, and that causes some fear to the king of Judah, and that's where the prophecy of a virgin conceiving a child is found in the context of this king here who's banding together with Syria and coming against the southern kingdom of Judah. So, interesting stuff, which we're not going to look at tonight because we don't have time to look at it. But whatever the case, this guy, Pekah, the son of Remaliah, is another evil king in verse 29. In the days of Pekah, king of Israel, did we read verse 28? Did we read verse 20? We didn't read verse 28, did we? Yeah, we did 27. He did evil in the sight of the Lord. He did not depart from the sons of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat. It's like a broken record, which he made Israel sin. And we see that with all these kings. In the days, it's like, it really is a broken record. But his sin brings trouble. In the days of Pekah, king of Israel, Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, came and captured Ijon and Abel-Beth-Maacah and Genoa and Kadesh and Hatzor and Gilead and Galilee, all the land of Naphtali, and he carried them captive to Assyria. So what we have here is we have a campaign of Assyria. Now, I just want to show you this. This is a map showing the Assyrian campaigns against Israel and Judah. And what we're looking at in our time frame that we're looking at is, well, check this out. We have 752 to 732. That's the time frame we're looking at. That's purple. And what's that, pink? Is that pink? I call that pink and red. Purple and pink. Anyone debate that? Purple and pink and red. You know what I've wondered in the past is what if I see purple and you see pink and we think that it's purple, but we see purple differently than each other. Like, you're seeing pink, but I see purple, and we think it's pink. Anyone ever think like that? What if my green is your red? You know, like, what if like my white is your black? I don't know. How would we ever know? Because all I would know is that's pink, and you're saying, yeah, of course that's pink, but you're seeing, green. I don't know. But anyway, so what we're seeing, you ever think like that? Roxanne, you ever had that thought? Joe, you've definitely had that thought. Yeah. Josh, you ever think like that? You've never had that thought? He's like, I don't even know what you're talking about up there. Who's winning the game? Anyway, so purple. This is purple. I wish we could explain what purple looks like, but then again, it'd still be a problem because you might consider the colors differently, and pink and red. And this is basically the land of Israel, and it goes out into some of these areas, but remember, some of these areas have kind of gotten taken away. You might notice some of the names. Ijon, Abel Beth Maacah, Kadesh, Genoam, the region of Galilee, right? Those are names we just read. And so when we look at purple and pink, I'm going to kind of follow. This is the purple line. It goes down into the land of the Philistines. Assyria came down through here and conquered. And they did that in 734. And then in 732, we have a pink line. And we see they come down here, and they come right through the land here, and they come over into the Gilead area and into the Transjordan. They're all over the place. They're basically taking all this land and attacking it. And then the red is just kind of out over here where they kind of come in and they're taking care of the Transjordan area. So when we read in the Bible, in the days of Pekah, king of Israel, Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, came and captured Ijon. We saw where that was. Abel Beth Maacah, and Genoa, and Kadesh, and Hatzor, and Gilead, and Galilee, all the land of Naphtali, and he carried them captive to Assyria. Now we're seeing, during this king's rule, Pekah's rule, these guys are coming in, and at 732 BC, at the very end of Pekah's rule, they actually the Assyrians conquer Syria. Now they're right at the doorstep. They conquered Damascus, and they come into the land of Israel, and they take most of the land in the north, and they take the Transjordan, whatever's left. They take those Israelites captive, and this causes serious unrest, and so Pekah, the son of Remaliah, he gets murdered. He gets murdered. All these guys, they keep getting murdered. And Hoshea, the son of Elah, made a coup, against Pekah, the son of Remaliah, and struck him and put him to death and became king in his... How many kings died naturally tonight? We got one. We got one. They all get murdered. I don't know about you. I don't want to get murdered. I'm not interested. I ain't finna sign up for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. So I'm not wanting to be the king. I wouldn't want to be Donald Trump. Who here would want to be Donald Trump right now? No way. You couldn't pay me enough money to be Donald Trump right now. I mean, the libs want him. They want to off him. They want to, as the internet would say, I don't want to get canceled. They want to unalive him. That's what you've got to say online now. You've got to say, unalive a person, because you can't say kill. What are we becoming as a society? But anyway, they want to unalive him. I would never want to be him. I wouldn't want to be any of these kings because they're all getting people unalived on the internet machine. They're getting killed. Hoshea, the son of Elah, made a conspiracy against Pekah, the son of Remaliah, struck him and put him to death, and became king in his place in the 20th year of Jotham, the son of Uzziah. Now the rest of the acts of Pekah and all that he did, behold, they are written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel. Pekah is murdered in the year 732 on our chart here. Much of Israel has been conquered. The end is near. The end is near. Now, that was a lot of stuff. We basically went from Zechariah, we did Shallum, we did Menahem, we did Pekahiah, we did Pekah, and all that, all those kings, 753 minus 732, how many years is that, approximately? 20. All this in 20 years. All this in 20, all these murders, all these assassinations in 20 years. We're seeing the decline, even the political decline. Spiritual declines long ago happened. We're seeing the political decline. We're seeing, what we've seen in these paragraphs is turmoil. Serious political turmoil. The continued downward trend of the nation of Israel. We've seen idolatrous, power-hungry, murderous men. We've seen brutal tyrants and military coups. Most of these kings, all of them but one, is recorded as having murdered the previous king and taken his place. And the only one that didn't murder got murdered. And the only one that didn't get murdered, he murdered. So every single one of these kings, murder was involved in either them becoming the king or stopping becoming king. Israel's falling apart. Destruction is imminent. They continue to follow the sins of Jeroboam. They continue to remain committed to idolatry, and now they're facing the consequences. And the questions that we ask are, how long will God bear with them? How long will it be until the Lord removes them from the land? It's coming real quick. Not tonight. We don't have time for it tonight. But it's coming. And those similar principles apply to us today. If we turn our backs from the Lord, eventually there will be consequences as a nation and as individuals. If our nation turns its back from the Lord, and we are doing so, don't let this election make you think that we've somehow had some religious revival. We haven't. We just had enough people turn out in the heartland to vote somewhat morally, but we have not had a spiritual revival in America. That has not happened. If we continue to turn our back on the Lord, our nation will lose its place. And the United States will see more evil rulers. And if you don't think Joe Biden was evil, then you don't know good and evil. Because you weren't paying attention. If you weren't paying attention to the stuff he did in the last days in office, and the pardons that he did, and the sex offenders, and the child molesters, and the child rapists and murderers that he let free, that he let off the hook, that he got off the death penalty. If that doesn't tell you that he was pure evil, then you don't know what evil is. Joe Biden was pure evil. He tried to hide it as a friendly guy for a while, but his colors came out in the end. He was evil. And we're going to have more evil rulers like that if we continue to turn our back as a nation against the Lord. And America will have a continued downward spiral until it sees its own destruction. And that is the fate of people of nations who draw in rebellion against the Lord. And personally, it may not be the same. You may not be in you're going to lose your job, you're going to face earthly consequences, all that stuff. You may. But you'll face eternal consequences for turning your back on the Lord. What Israel needs is the same thing you need. And it's the same thing America needs, and that is Jesus. Israel needs the Messiah. They need a messianic king. And none of those kings, you think any of those kings, they're all murderers. They need the Messiah. We need the Messiah. We need to remain faithful to the Lord and to his truth. And we need to spread his gospel in the hopes that our nation will see a legitimate revival and avoid the consequences of rebellion so that we in America don't see a continued downward trend until we're destroyed as a nation. I'd like to ask you to take your hymnals and turn to 3.